Let's make sense of this.
Let's make sense.
Sense makers.
Hey, Jeffrey Shaffer. This is Keith coming to you live from the last day of the Tableau Conference. Things are just winding down. We came out of the Steve Kornacki keynote. It's been 3 pretty intensive days. You just mentioned if you
Yes.
close my eyes, I might fall asleep. I'm going to need some caffeine. We've received a lot of information. We've had a lot of conversations. For me personally, Jeffrey, you've been a figure in the Tableau community ever since I, as a youngling, entered. I remember you sort of following my journey as I was doing my Coursera courses in R and giving me pats on the back along the way, telling me, you can do it, Keith, you know? And so it's a real pleasure to have you here. And what I
great to be
wanted
here.
to do was just kind of repeat what you and I tend to do year on year on year, is get together and it's either over dinner at a restaurant in Las Vegas, or it's in the foyer
street.
here in front of the convention center here in San Diego, and just talk industry, like what is going on, the moving pieces in the data analytics industry, especially given the shakeup since the lightning bolt of AI struck.
Yeah, I mean, it's all AI, right? Been doing AI for so long, and it's so weird because been doing AI in the financial services realm for 10, 15 years. It's like, yeah, AI, and then even OpenAI. We were using the OpenAI API before they put this shiny interface on it and turned it into this consumer product. And I mean, we were blown away by some of the things. So I had an early look, I guess, at it. I mean, not early as in 2017 research papers that were all over this Gen AI, but we were quickly solving problems in the financial services. I'll give you an example. We built a model. It took about 2 years to build a model, and we were able to replicate a working version of it using basically ChatGPT, the OpenAI API, and did it in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and it was just like, that was kind of the eye-opening thing of where we're going, because we can really solve complicated problems quickly. And then on the flip side, it's like, okay, well, it also opens up a whole nother can of worms with accuracy and reliability and trust in your data and security and all these other things we always worry about. And so life for me the last couple of years has been focusing on AI.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tidal wave, right? Like at some point I caught on to the AI wave on my YouTube feed, and the 2-minute papers was feeding me 2-minute papers at a pace that was pretty astounding before the big news blew up. But now the big news has blown up, and I feel myself like the main players in this space that we used to operate in have to adjust, and it's kind of hitting them in an orthogonal direction where the Tableau architecture, for example, we spent a lot of time in the Tableau core to the core conversation with the executive leadership yesterday, that listening session, just talking about how hobbled they are at the moment with the prioritization problem of, there's a lot of architectural problems with the old Tableau server, Tableau cloud, Tableau desktop premise that need to be solved. All of those things were architected before AI, before API.
That's right.
How do you see this 2-minute papers tidal wave that's surmounting the industry affecting this world of Tableau, Power BI, Tableau specifically?
Well, I mean, I'll start at big picture. You just look at the way things in society. We just got out of this keynote, that kind of at the end of the keynote, they were talking about not using generative AI in school and, not using it for this and that. And I just think that's the wrong approach. The genie is out of the bottle, Pandora's box is open. At this point, everything is going in that direction. So the natural thing is for us, and I'll start again, big picture at the University of Cincinnati, our approach is not to tell students not to use it. It's to expect that when they graduate, employers are going to be looking at them and expecting that they know how to use it. And then they need to be trained in it. Well, to be trained in it, then they need to be using it. And so to be using it, that has to be in the classroom, it has to be in the workshops, it has to be in your products, it has to be in everything kind of baked in. And so that, if I start there and work myself down, then it's baked into everything we do. Like I already have Copilot in my email, I already have Copilot in my I can search, documents, and I basically have access to all that repository. Well, if I have it there, then I also have it in PowerPoint. Sucks right now in PowerPoint, but it's there, and it'll only get better. And then it's in everything that I'm doing, right? Google Docs. Well, what about Tableau? Well, then it needs to be in Tableau. What about my code that I write in Python? Well, it's in Cursor, or it's in GitHub Copilot, or whatever the next variation. And so I think these tools have to stay alive. They have to embrace that. We saw the early aspects of it in the agent force and things like that, but the biggest thing for me was devs on stage watching the opening of the platform a little bit. Like you said, Salesforce, as they described, I don't know if you went to the community event, but they talked about Salesforce was kind of built with an API sort of service. First.
Yeah.
Tableau wasn't.
Tableau
never was.
Right.
And so, and not a job I want, but at the Tableau developer, that they're spending a lot of time and resources setting that all up before they could do these other things. And so I think that's where we're at, right? It's like, okay, how do you get AI in there? One of the
Going to route through APIs.
Right, for sure. Every API, right? Like all sorts of things. So to me, I think one of the biggest advances is opening of the platform for more community things, right? We saw the community build things into that into Tableau desktop even. In 10 seconds I had watching them build 20, 30, 40 charts of like...
You're talking about the devs on stage
Yeah.
and the data viz and what Tristan has done. They gave him a list of, say, 200 commands that he could run to get the inner workings of Tableau desktop, and he can produce a dashboard in seconds.
Right.
With that. And to me, what was most astounding was the overwhelming support for that's what we want, because the analyst is stuck right-clicking themselves to death.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And there is a use case I am seeing more and more out in the world where executives just want answers to questions too, right? So they don't necessarily, there's the whole dashboards are dead sort of idea. I don't prescribe to that, otherwise I wouldn't have written another dashboard book, but I think there is a need for just answering a question. Generative AI makes that illusion of that answer to that question is simple. What's total sales or what's total revenue? And it's like everybody thinks, oh, go to my Superstore data and I'll run total sales. It's like in the real world, data's messy. And my grad students are like, yeah, whatever, and then they get out there in the real world and understand.
It's messy.
It's messy. I'm
It's
not
messy.
kidding. It's always messy. And so you can't just throw a tool at it and just say, okay, what's the answer to my question? Well, you got to define that question. That department calls that something and this department calls it something else. And when you total it together, it doesn't match. Well, there might be a reason it doesn't match, because they need to see different things. And all those things are the other thing was the metadata, right? You take this beautiful metadata and you throw it in there, you'll get your answers to your questions. I've never walked into a company that has the metadata organized to figure out and answer those questions ever. Right? It's like, okay, yeah, in a perfect world, I could get that answer to that question like that. But Tristan's approach is a little different, right? The analyst is still providing the domain knowledge and the understanding and knowing the challenges and the filters and all that stuff. And so having it build those things out, and then I can use them.
And the analyst is unlocked in their ability to just rip with desktop. Rip with desktop.
Yeah. And I'm seeing, you go over to ChatGPT or Claude, it can do beautiful EDA, and you throw in a dummy data set. Again, it's a CSV, it's not your proprietary data from Apple or somewhere, right, that you're going to put in there. But that's where, if Tableau gets there with a tool like Tristan's, you can do even more, right?
Because you're in your proprietary environment, you can connect to your proprietary data. One of the things that I'm really kind of keen on, Jeffrey, and I'm interested in your take, is, well, first of all, my takeaway from what you've just said is reinforcing my view that modeling is super important. Mm-hmm. Just having a data model where everything fits together and getting tidy with the metadata finally, and getting tidy with the governance, and if these two teams are using the same language to refer to different things, let's call it different things. Organization and tidiness in general, and the importance of modeling. The thing that you just touched on that I'm really curious about is also the future importance of context.
Context is everything.
Context is everything. Context is everything. And so to me, the crossroads where these two things come together is, we saw in the keynote that VDS is going to let me do some Gen AI on existing Tableau server published data sources. But to me, the problem with that is there's a lot of Tableau server published data sources, and each one of them is a little mini context. It's just a little mini context that I can do Gen AI on that, but my audience isn't going to want to have 30 conversations with 30 different chatbots on 30 different contexts. They're going to want to have one conversation with one context on my well-groomed, truly modeled enterprise data where all of that stuff has come together in the center. And so that's my viewpoint. Can you give me your viewpoint on the importance of context and how do we manage context within the Tableau paradigm in the new world?
Yeah, I mean, it happens when we say context is everything, I'll just give you a real world example, and I'll do it from UC where we're working on, research stuff, the research group, and, there was a report recently and they were talking about, on the top of the dashboard, it says graduate awards or something, right? And so you look at it like research with this specific criteria. Well, when they published the data, the number wasn't what was expected, and it turned out, well, they didn't really want to filter it out to graduate. They wanted the whole thing. Well, okay, so again, now it's like, well, that was originally built to answer one question. Now you're using the same data source to answer another question, which is a very similar question, but you're just changing your filters. It's like, well, who's asking the question? Do you know do you know what the data is behind the question? It's always the classic example of, back in financial services, they'd say, oh, I want to see this by state or whatever, and you give it all up. Well, okay, did you really mean all that? Because this group over here doesn't work in all the states. They only work in these 17 states, and that group works in those states. So when you say all the states, did you really mean all the states, or did you mean the subset? And so it's the domain, in Gen AI, we say the human in the loop, right? When we're talking about training that, I think in the Tableau or Gen AI and BI space, that human in the loop is a level further of understanding the data modeling enough to really answer the business question that I know the executive wants. They didn't ask it right. They asked X, but I know they really mean Y. I don't think Gen AI is going to get us there,
And
right?
how does what I know they really want match with the data I know I really have? And how do I align the context of the question with the data in order to actually produce an accurate result?
Right.
What did you see from the announcements in terms of the Tableau product suite? Anything that you were able to get your hands on through your role as a visionary or in the community or in the labs with Tableau Next? What did you see with the direction from a product perspective that Tableau is moving and their ability to wrangle these questions?
Yeah, I mean, as a visionary, we get to see things under the hood a little bit, all that, obviously under NDA, but the stuff that we saw publicly, I think the message has been consistent, which is good, seeing what they are, and I think what they've been saying, and I don't think I'm saying anything they didn't say publicly themselves, is I feel like the direction and the stuff they're working on has been good. The way they've messaged it has not. And they've been acknowledging themselves, we as Tableau, even coming from the CEO in the public event that he was at, I'm speaking for him, we need to be doing a better job of re-messaging that. And I think, applause to them for recognizing that.
Because the innovation is happening, it's just that
they're not explaining it well, right?
We
haven't explained what we're doing, right? And so I think, things like you heard, which was refreshing to hear, is like, oh, well, why haven't you? Oh, well, Tableau wasn't built as an open platform like Salesforce originally with the APIs.
Yeah.
And so to hear them say that on the public stage out front is that, oh, that's the reason why, the roadmap is what it is. So listening to Southern at the community event, I don't know what they called that on the stage over there, but they were on the stage and they took questions from the community, and that's a new thing. In the old days, that's a Salesforce thing, which I applaud, because Tableau didn't used to do that, right? So now the whole community gets to hear that message. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it was actually a healing conversation for me, because I heard from them the things that really resonated, which were that, look, up at this altitude, we've got a lot of problems to solve. The old Tableau platform wasn't necessarily built for the demands of today. We actually got started 18 months ago with re-architecting the thing, and we could have been shipping features faster to make you happy in the short term, but we're skiing to where the puck is gonna be. And we're on that. One of the couple of key phrases that came out for me was one, we feel as though this is our first TC. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I
We
do.
feel as if this is our first TC because all the cards are on the table again.
Yeah.
In terms of like the actual product features and the actual product direction, to me, like in my view, coming into this conference, I was like, there's just no good choices. I don't know if I'm right about that. I don't know if I'm wrong about that. But my view is that Tableau has become something of a kind of conglomeration of Frankenware of different product directions that don't necessarily fit with each other, and it's ripe for a disruptor to come in. Microsoft has, definitely had their fingers in every AI pie. They've got it everywhere, so they have something of a competitive advantage there. But I don't necessarily know that Power BI is the alternative either. And I've had this stance that there's just no good alternatives, and that the room is ripe for somebody to use all of these new tools to build the alternative that doesn't exist today. That's been my kind of perspective. How do you see things?
It's possible, I guess. I go back when Francois was here. I used to tell him, "You got the hardest job in the world to try to prioritize stuff over
It's
there."
hard.
I can't even imagine. And now I feel for Southard. I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, I wouldn't want that job. And I could tell it in the same session, Southard. I could hear his frustration of everybody thinks we're working on X, and he says he has this dashboard. He was looking at his resources. He's like, I have more people working on
Yeah.
Tableau server than any other project.
Yep.
I got laughs, right? It's like they are to some extent resource constrained to have to focus on all of these things,
Aren't we
right?
all?
Of course, right? Every project. Here's what I'll say, and to their credit, number one, I don't think anybody knows. You said skating to where the puck is. I think people are trying to figure out where,
Where
right?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Nobody knows where that puck's going to be when it
Right.
comes to AI, because
Right.
technology used to always changed fast, but I'd say it was an annual pace of change, right? The new version of Tableau, or the new this, or the new that.
The new rate of change is a kicker
It's
of a
crazy,
curve.
right? It's
Right.
like every week there's a new tool. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that thing's gone. That
Yeah.
thing's gone. So I think that's the problem that you face. Let's go back to the business problems. People still have data. People still have questions about their data. People
The data's
still
a
need
mess.
the data's a mess. People still need to visualize it. They still need to get answers. They may still need a dashboard or something to run their business. That fundamental thing isn't changing, right? Data analysis isn't changing. The way we do it might change, and it might be more generative. It might be generative AI may help us with the cleaning. It may help us with the governance. It may help us with the data dictionary. It may help us with all these things, but the problems are still, to me, the problems. Microsoft plays, Google plays, OpenAI. I think those foundational models is a race to the bottom for me, because that's a commodity.
Only
It's
a few
like,
people have them.
yeah, and it's like, well, in the open source community, DeepSeek or Llama or whatever, I can go get for free and get many of the same functionality. So I do like the Tableau's approach. Again, from some of the stuff we saw in the keynote, was kind of mentioned in the background, but the Lang chain, Llama, set up your own thing and connect to it. I think that's the future. That's what I see companies moving to. They're connecting to those kind of tools.
So if I can pick up what you're putting down, none of the problems changed. And the analyst is still super important. The analyst has been wicked hobbled by just having to right-click themselves to death in Tableau Desktop, which is 20 years old. Tristan and La Data Viz have just blown it out of the water with this innovative pilot of maybe we can just unlock Tableau Desktop in ways that have never been unlocked. And then I'm on-prem inside of my firewall connecting to my data being an analyst. Is it plausible that at least in the medium and short term, the increased kind of importance and empowerment of the analyst is actually at the fore?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good summary. I obviously Tableau in the 20 years you've worked in, I don't know what version you started. I was version 5, or
I was
wasn't-
8, version
yeah,
8,
it's just-
8.2 was a big one.
At least started floating in 8, right? You
Pulled
could do
me in.
some design things, but the clicking that you talk about has certainly gotten easier, right? The functionality has gotten easier. The power has gotten better, with what they're doing. So I don't mind that. It's just I think what you're alluding to is the frustration of the guy is like, how many times do I have to right click to remove that border, or how, you know, it's just
do
like the
that
same
again.
stuff over and over and
Correct.
over and over again on every viz. It's like,
Right.
I think that stuff will go away, right? It'll be like, well, I don't even have to build the chart. It'll
Correct.
build all that stuff for me. Like you're seeing Pulse do some of that, and you're seeing Tristan's tool do some of that, ChatGPT doing that. I think that will be the future, and we'll be able to step back and say, okay, well, now I have 50 charts to choose from. How do I pick? You know, now I'm going back to that human in the loop. Is how do I tell a data story? How, you know, that what's the value in the human? You know, it's the connections, the maybe empathy, maybe knowing the person. Like I've known you for years, so you trust. I built a trust with you. I don't have that trust with ChatGPT, right? I can't trust that number. So I think the human becomes even more important in the presentation of the data modeling side of it, the context side of it, the building all the foundational. But on the back end, I think we're still the delivery, right, is us, the human.
And increasingly, if the role of the analyst is changing, then what I heard you say is that ability to listen to the question that's coming from the business, that's coming from the executive, pick up what they're putting down. They didn't necessarily phrase the question in the way that was most precise, but actually to understand what they're truly asking for, and then be contextually aware of the data that I have and use these new tools in order to produce those answers in new ways.
Yeah, if anybody has been in the community long enough, you'll know this name, but Joe Mako. And you know, back in the day when I talked to Joe, I'd ask a question and I didn't even know what I was asking. You know, it's like I'm trying to do this thing in Tableau and I can't even explain it to him correctly of what I'm trying to do. And somehow he just understood what I was trying to do. And it was like, yeah, you're trying to do this. And all of a sudden it was there. And so that ability to interpret what the people are really asking for versus what's coming out of their mouth, right? They're saying, oh yeah, I'd like to see this. Yeah, but you didn't think about these other 12 things to get to the answer of your question.
Yep.
That's the context.
That's
right?
the context.
Context is everything.
Context is everything. Okay, well, thanks, Jeffrey. This has been great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And great to be with you, man. Good to
Okay.
see you again.
Yep, we'll see you again next year.
Yeah.
Let's make sense of this.
Let's make sense.